So I was looking at this article and it was talking about Ghana granted citizenship to over 100 African Americans and the Afro Carribeans as part of a year of return. And the article was pretty interesting, so I'm not really going to read all of the article. I usually read majority of the article, um, but this article was by, the names are going to be different, of course. Akwanzi, Asidu, and Akarkra, Ghana. So I may not be pronouncing that correctly. So I found this article pretty interesting, but this was like printed out, like, or at least it was put out November the 28th, 2019. So you see all of the people pictured here. So this is a ceremony of people who have been granted citizenship to the country of Ghana, and those of whom being African Americans who were formerly citizens of the U.S. And so I guess some people were really looking at the things that have been going on, and they just got tired, and they said, we're gonna leave all of what we know as the Western ways behind us and move forward to a whole nother culture, which really the culture originally is some of our culture, and some of us who are now being introduced back into the culture, and then others who are learning a new culture. And so I thought it was interesting. So I'm not able to pronounce all the names correctly, but it says 126 African Americans and Afro-Cuban, or I said Afro-Cuban, Afro-Caribbeans, which probably could be, possibly. They were dressed in colorful garb, costumes, and became the newest citizens of Ghana. And so they took an oath of allegiance. And so this is them pictured here. And look at the beautiful outfits and costumes they're wearing. And you can see it in the room they're in. And I'm sure they took a nice photo that would stay in maybe an office or something there, so it can be remembered. And it's probably the start of something, of course. There's one in the paper, and then later down the road there'll be probably other people who will venture down that way. So you see them celebrating right here. So this is Wednesday, November the 27th, that a speech was given by the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. He gave the speech, and so he said, on behalf of the government and the people of Ghana, I congratulate you once again on resuming your identity as Ghanaians. So this is what the president spoke, and this is the celebration right here. You can see the people, and I thought it was pretty nice. Two, I was reading in the article that they said that it helps the economy, especially when you invite people who are highly educated coming from the U.S. to go over there, because now that they can take the school jobs, the office jobs, and actually bring what all the education that they do know and offer it into the state of, or into the country of Ghana. And so the reason being for the ceremony, it says this year marks the 400 years since the anchoring of the English ship in Jamestown, Virginia in the U.S., carrying a small group of enslaved Africans. So while Africans had been in the small parts of the Americas region, including the present-day U.S., before 1619, the year is widely regarded as the commencement of the slave trade in the U.S. And so a lot of people have been mentioning off and on again. I've seen a couple of videos that have been put out where some people have made mention of this. And so this is like a really great milestone for Ghana. And I remember not far ago, or not long ago, they had said that they were going to open up their borders and welcome in African Americans, because I believe they were seeing a lot of the injustices that were done here in the U.S. and that's still being done here in the U.S. towards African Americans or people of color here. And so that was another reason why they decided to open their borders up. They were doing something that this president in the U.S. has been, far against, in terms of inclusiveness of people who just want to live and they want to have better lives. And so this, fortunately, this president here is trying to open their doors up specifically to African Americans so that they can have a chance at a better life. And be able to grow and be proud of who they are and the culture. So you see another picture here as Quartz Africa has previously reported throughout the 2019 Ghana has been hosting a raft of activities which are called Home and Abroad to encourage the descendants of those who were forcibly sent away to return. So that's basically what I said. So to recognize our unique position as the location of 75% of the slave dungeons built on the west coast of Africa through which the slaves were transported. So that is why we have a responsibility to extend a hand of welcome back home to Africans in the diaspora. And the president added this in his speech. So you see people here, and this is an African American family, and they're in African garb, and you see them celebrating for their commencement day of becoming citizens of Ghana. And so I thought it was pretty neat. And it says the new Ghanaians are representing up here. They're wearing traditional attire after a ceremony. And so the most valuable possession that was taken away from us was our identity and our connection to culture. And so it was like severing actually an umbilical cord. But tonight the identity and the dignity and the pride of people that has been absent is restored. And so this is by a Rabbi Kohen who spoke on behalf of the new citizens. And so you see people that were sitting here listening to the speech and the commencement take forth. And it says the ceremony is restoring citizenship to 34 diasporan Africans in December of 2016. So there were people that were already on board with going over there. And so it's now opening its doors for more and more people have considered ditching their U.S. citizenship and going back to these countries because of a lot of the things that have happened, and then also to be closer to the culture of whence they began. So I thought it was pretty neat. So about 500,000 tourists are expected to visit Ghana during the year of return, and up to about 380,000 that visited in 2018. So the businesses are eagerly anticipating the influx of visitors over the festive season, which the Afro Nation and what they call Afrochella festivals are expected to attract thousands of young diasporan Africans. So the U.S. this year, Ghana has been heralded as a major year-end of the year vacation destination among African American celebrities, Black colleges, alumni, organizations, and similar groups. So the government is also not losing sight that the investment, which is the economy potential of human capital of the highly educated returnees who decide to permanently move to Ghana. So they're thinking as they're doing the celebrating and bringing back people who are eagerly wanting to experience a better life in the African countries. So I thought this was a neat article, at least, since this is the Thanksgiving week. It has nothing to do with Thanksgiving, which is a great thing, but it does have all to do with the 400 year mark and Africans being restored, the 400 years since the anchoring of the English ship. And notice that they did not make mention of the Western world holidays, which are pagan holidays. Those of you that may not be aware, and those who are. And so, what better way to celebrate something that really is historic and something that really is validated is this ceremony here and the welcoming of people who are going back to their homeland. And so with that being said, I'm going to let this video go, but I just thought it was interesting because there's been a lot of things that have been happening, a lot of shootings here in the U.S., a lot of killings, a lot of racial tension, and it seems like that's always happening. It's never really went away. And even with the jobs, African Americans, you get educated and they don't want you to advance at careers. They don't want to give you a chance to become managers or CEOs or move up in a career. They pretty much want to keep you stagnated. And I want to add this in there that those are a lot of reasons why people are tired. And here in the U.S., you're not looked at as still human. You're looked at as other, or you're looked at as something that is less favorable in the eyes of people that are running things here in the U.S. And usually the bosses and the CEOs and the people that operate most of the companies and the infrastructure tend to not be people of color. And if they are people of color, they had to do so much to get to those positions, and they have to prove themselves over and over again, and then it's not guaranteed that they will hold those positions for very long because there's so much competition, and a lot of it is racialized and stereotyped. And that is what has happened here in the U.S. A lot of people have felt a lot of the brunt of the attention that we've been getting from some of the rhetoric that this president here in the U.S. has been giving to people that he finds more highly favorable. It's usually the rich, the wealthy, and people that are not black, people that are white, and that are like really distant from reality that there's not just one group of people that live in the U.S. And it has to do to all with a lot of greed, self-centeredness, egotistic attitudes where it's about one group and one kind of folk. And so it is becoming more and more evident that that's the way things have been going in the U.S. And so that might be strong indicators as to why people are tired. And we've had a lot of protests. A lot of people have speaking out on things that they feel disgruntled about, or they feel that is still controversial. We've for years had to endure looking at statues that had all to do with slavery. They have years, decades of having to go to a boss or a CEO or somebody who is extremely racist, or you have situations where you're trying to live with your family and you go to public places to eat and you get cussed out, or you get called the N-word, or you're treated badly, your kids are treated badly in school, and you're not given opportunities to advance in careers in college. You have the college scandal for USC. Here you have privileged white people who they have jobs, they're CEOs, they have a lot of money, they're wealthy, they're considered part of the 1% class, but they're still not satisfied with the wealth that they possess, yet they're trying to do things there. They've tried to do things to get their kids into some of the highest prestigious college here in the U.S., and it has worked for many, many years, and they're now holding some of these people accountable. But if you see the punishments they're getting, it just seems like it's not really fitting, because if it was some people of color who they had have done the same thing, they would have had a longer jail time, longer sentences. They would have had to endure more punitive um, consequences if they had have done some of the same things. We had a mother that was trying to send her kid to a better school because she didn't like the schools, as I recall, if what I've heard from some people, but because she lived in not the right zip code, they wanted to fine her and then put her in prison. All because she wanted to send her kid to a better school. I believe that's how the story went. But yet you got other people who are wealthy, they're rich, they're actors and actresses, and everybody feels some type of sympathy for them. They get a couple of days in jail, they may have a fine, and there's a few of them that were involved in the scandal who won't own up to the responsibility of the consequences. They're trying to lie their way out of that, and for years, for decades, I remember as even a kid, as far back, where they would have these huge debates over this topic called affirmative action, and I believe what that was to help people of color be able to have fair shake at opportunities to get in colleges and jobs and housing and what have you. And now we have this USC scandal. It makes you think back to all of that and say, everything that people were thinking, that were saying, that pertained to affirmative action was a reason for that to be in place. And now that you're looking in hindsight of what happened more recently with the developments of the college scandals, universities here in the U.S., it makes you all more feel as though those debates, when people of color were saying they felt like that testing wasn't fair, that trying to apply to the universities was racialized, it wasn't fair, that they weren't given opportunities as their other counterparts, their white counterparts, white peers. And so it makes you really think now in hindsight that those people who probably some of those people are not here anymore, or either they're really older and they're looking at this, we told you so, is what they're probably thinking. And they're saying, they fought so long and hard to try to make opportunities more available to people of color, and then there was others that were fighting so hard to close off those opportunities and to pretty much end affirmative action. And then they built cases around why they shouldn't have affirmative action. And you even had other black people who were parroting off of white people, which we still do have that today, as to why we shouldn't have affirmative action. And it was sad because now that you see what had happened is that people were still, even though they were given privileges, even though they were white, even though they were wealthy, they were still finding loopholes. They were finding ways to get their kids in high prestigious universities, which have like a real strict rule of GPA and of who gets in. They want the cream of the crop students, and most of those students that we saw come from white families. There were white kids who are young people who did not have the abilities to get into those universities. Had it not been for the lies and the deceit and the money laundering that was going on, and the corruption and all of it, and this little ring they had going on, it was a racket that was going on, how to take tests for their kids and pay for test takers to, make their exams look like they aced their exams. And here you got black people who were studying to try to get into those schools, and they had the GPA, but they were denied entry into those schools, or they have a lower number of African American students that get into those colleges because of race-based, racialized college boards or college officials who would rather have white students attend those universities, because if you look at those universities, some of the statues that were on the university campuses represented slavery, and we had some protests about that. And so when you look at all of this, you can kind of see why people are tired. People are saying, enough. Let's find another place that will make us feel more confident about who we are and welcome us wholeheartedly, and they won't use racial stereotyping to place us in neighborhoods and in jobs, that they will look at us more as inclusive to the culture, and it'll be a warmer and a welcoming type of environment rather than punitive and suspicious and feeling as though they're looking for you to fail. So with that being said, I'm going to let this video go because I can understand all too well what this feels like, being it shows that I'm African American, and I know how it feels to be in the work world in society where people don't look highly to you, even if you've gone to college, you've studied, you work really hard to try to get where you are, and you want to find ways to make more money because things are expensive. Things seem to be going up. We have the issues of homelessness. Rent has been raised, living in neighborhoods of poverty, and then you have landlords that are greedy who all they think about is the rent. They don't care about their tenants. You are being in a situation where it's dangerous to live, but they're more concerned about their pockets and their bank accounts and how much money you can give them rather than programs to help Black people try to become homeowners. Programs, there are programs, but there's so much you have to do to find those programs or get into those programs, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to find things that you would expect. And so people want to live a better life in the African American community as well, which U.S. has sort of forgotten about that, or has forgotten about that. Everything has been accommodating to other cultures other than African Americans, and who have still, even to this day, have to fight in their position of who they are, where they live, and where they work, and to just be able to survive in society here in the U.S. It is not easy. So having said that, I'm gonna let this video go as of now. Thanks for listening.